Hello, everyone. This is Misha Houston, and I'm here to do my review for Game of Thrones. Tonight's episode is entitled Beyond the Wall, and I thought it was a very action packed episode. I enjoyed the conversations and the confrontations, but there were a few things that kind of stood out to me, and there was one big thing that I really didn't agree with. I know that there are going to be a lot of differing opinions about this one section of the episode, but I have to state my opinion. And I just felt like this one section really disappointed me. And I just think that I would have liked to see a character, stand up more for himself than what he did instead of caving. And I'll get to that section in time. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the episode. I love the locations that it was set in. I thought everything was very beautiful to look at. And I enjoyed the storyline very much so far, with the exception of one section. And I am eagerly awaiting the season finale as well. So, thank you very much. The first group of people we go to is Jon, Beric, Tormund, Gendry, Thoros, the Hounds, other wildlings, and the Night's Watchmen. The first thing we see when the episode starts is the painted table in Dragonstone. The camera is moving from south to north, from Dorne to the north, ending beyond the wall. Then we see Jon and company moving through the north beyond the wall to fulfill their mission of obtaining a White Walker. The White Walker is needed to prove to Daenerys, Cersei, and the rest of Westeros that the White Walkers do exist and that they are marching south to destroy Westeros. Jon, Gendry, and Tormund are talking. Gendry has never seen snow before and he is amazed. Tormund is refreshed and can breathe again. He says everything south of the wall smells of pig shit. Gendry wonders how the free folk managed to survive in this cold. Tormund says that they needed to keep moving. That was the key, to keep moving, by either walking, fighting, or fucking. Jon says that there is no living woman hundreds of miles from here. Then Tormund teases Gendry, saying that we'll just have to make do with what we have here. Gendry hears this and he steps away from them. After Gendry leaves, Tormund says that he's really not too smart, but neither is this mission to capture the White Walker. Then the conversation turns to Dany. Jon says that she will only fight with us if he bends the knee. Jon, since he's lived with the wildlings, has, stopped kneeling. He's not a kneeler anymore. Tormund brings up Mance Rayder, the king who wouldn't kneel. Tormund says that he was a great man, and he also asked how many of his people died for his pride. Gendry, before I, step forward in that, Tormund says that I think he's relaying to Jon that maybe he should kneel. But I don't imagine Gendry doing anything like that. Tormund doing anything like that. Tormund would never kneel himself. So why is he encouraging Jon to kneel? But, you know. Now, Gendry has stepped away from Jon and Tormund, and he's walking with the Brotherhood and the Hound. He complains that they sold him like a slave to a witch. He says that she stripped him naked and put leeches on him, only to get at his blood. He says that she might have even killed him. Then the Hound interrupts, saying that they didn't kill you. The Hound says Beric has died 6 times and you don't hear him bitching about it. Thoros then offers him a swig out of his wineskin, and they keep on walking. Then Jon and Jorah are the next to have a conversation, and they talk about Jorah's father, Lord Jeor Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Jorah thinks that he deserved a better son. Jon says that he was a prisoner of the wildlings when Jeor died, but he assures Jorah that his death had been avenged. Jorah thinks that it's a shame that he died by the men of the Night's Watch because he knew that the Night's Watch was his life. Jon then talks about Ned, and Jon says that Ned was a good man himself and he died a traitor's death on the chopping block. Jorah said that Ned had wanted to execute Jorah, but Jorah and Jon are both glad that Ned never got the chance to do so. Then Jorah tries to give, no, excuse me, then Jon tries to give Longclaw back to Jorah, saying that it was the Mormont family sword. But Jorah says that he's dishonored himself and his house, and he's broken his father's heart. Jorah gives Longclaw back to Jon, saying that this is yours, and it would serve you well, and you should give it to your children after you. And we kind of get the sense that he's also giving his blessing for Jon to pursue Dany if he wanted to. I mean, that scene was very heavy and very fraught, and you can feel that it was more about Daenerys than Longclaw. So, apparently, Jorah has sensed some sort of attraction between the two of them, and he's giving his blessing, to Jon, so he can, for the two of them to be together. And apparently, Jon takes up that opportunity later on in the episode. The next two people we go to is Arya and Sansa. In Winterfell, Sansa comes out to see Arya. Arya remembers the time when Ned was watching Bran and the others practicing archery. Arya thinks Sansa wouldn't remember since she was inside knitting. But Sansa does remember that time. Arya says that she came out to practice by herself. It was only one bow and one arrow available to her, so she practiced with that one bow and one arrow. It took her many tries. Yes, she said it took her many tries to hit the target, but she eventually hit the bullseye. And when Arya did hit the bullseye, Ned was watching her the entire time and clapping for her. Arya says that she thought that she was doing something wrong and that she would get in trouble for it, but Ned apparently approved. And she kept on training. Arya says now he's dead, and he was killed by the Lannisters with Sansa's help. Sansa is aghast at what she's hearing, but then Arya pulls out the letter that Sansa wrote in season 1. Arya begins to read it, much to Sansa's dismay. Arya is now angry with Sansa and blames her for Ned's death. Sansa says that they forced her to write that letter. But Arya said, did they threaten you with a knife at your throat, or did they threaten to torture you on the rack? But Sansa says, replies that you don't know what it was like. You don't understand what was going on at that time, and I was a child. Arya says, I was a child then too. And I would have let them kill me before I betrayed Ned and her family. Sansa says that it was the only way to save him, and Sansa calls her stupid for believing it. Arya says that she was there at the day of the execution, that she remembers Sansa being there herself, And then Sansa asked her, did you see me there? Did you even try to save him yourself? Did you do anything yourself? Did you fight through the crowd to save father? And then Arya responds saying that she tried, but Sansa counters and tells her that you may have tried, but you didn't do anything. You failed. She said, Arya says that she never would have betrayed her family for her beloved Joffrey. Sansa says Arya should be on her knees thanking her. Sansa says that we're standing here in Winterfell because of her. Neither you or Jon won the battle of the bastards. I won that battle. And the Knights of the Vale won that battle as well. They rode in at the nick of time to save Jon, and they rode in because of her order. Sansa says, while you were off training and all across the world doing, who knows what, she was here suffering things that you could never imagine. Sansa says says to Arya that you never would have survived what I survived. Arya says we will never know. Sansa asks, what are you going to do with that letter? And Arya threatens to show it to the Northern Lords in order to ruin her standing with them. Sansa doesn't want that, but it's really up to Arya now what she decides to do. Sansa says anger makes people do unfortunate things, and then Arya counters saying that fear makes a person do unfortunate things. Arya says that she'll stick with anger. Now, this is a very hot button issue, in the episode, Sansa versus Arya. Sansa is, trying to establish her power in Winterfell and in the north. And here comes Arya with that letter, trying to tear it all down. Arya, believes in Jon and loves Jon more than Sansa. It's very apparent that she loves Jon more than Sansa. Arya has always been resentful of Sansa and vice versa. And you could hear it very much in Arya's voice. She's always sort of been resentful of her and not understanding her. They've had a very strained relationship, and they've had it long before everything jumped off with Ned. And Arya's discovered that letter. Arya's discovered that letter that Sansa didn't want her to know about, and their relationship has really become tense. It's really become tense between those two, and it's kind of sad because all of her life Sansa has tried to have some power for herself. And I really don't hold it against Sansa, because it seems like the people that are powerless are mistreated and done wrong and killed. And now here comes Arya threatening that power. But I can also see it from Arya's point too. You know, Arya, has been a strong person all her life, and she's been independent and strong all her life, and she doesn't understand what it's like to be powerless, because Arya herself has always been a powerful person in her own right. So she would never understand how to be truly and totally powerless herself, because she's never been powerless. So she doesn't understand why Sansa wouldn't stand up for herself, why she couldn't fight back. But, as for Sansa, fighting back is rarely something that Sansa can do. It's just a rare occurrence, and they're at the opposite ends of the spectrum, and they don't understand each other's point of view. That's just my take on that section of the story. Now, we move back to Jon, Tormund, Jorah, Thoros, the Hound, Beric, Gendry, the Wildlings, and the Night's Watchmen moving up north. Tormund strikes up a conversation with the Hound. Tormund asks, were you born mean, or do you just hate wildlings? The Hound says, I don't care anything about wildlings. I just hate gingers, people with red hair. Tormund says that gingers are beautiful, kissed by fire just like him, pointing at the Hound and his burns on his face. Now, before I move on to that next section, I want to say that the Hound said that he hates gingers, but yet he was, had feelings and protective over Sansa, who has red hair. Tormund asked, did you get burned? He asked him, how did you get burned? And the Hound said that he was pushed into fire. Tormund thinks that he's not truly a mean person because he has sad eyes. The Hound, asked him, what's up with you? Do you want to suck my dick? And Tormund says, no, it's pussy for me. Tormund says that he has a beauty waiting for him back in Winterfell. She has yellow hair and blue eyes and almost as tall as the Hound. The Hound realizes that he's talking about Brienne of Tarth. The Hound asks if they are together, but Tormund says not yet. He sees the way that she looks at him, Tormund says. And the Hound replies, how does she look at you? Does she look at you like she want to cut out your liver? And Tormund says, oh, you have met her. Tormund wonders, how did a mad fucker like him manage to stay alive all this time? And Tormund says that he's really good at killing. Then the conversation goes on to Beric and Jon, and they talk about the Lord of Light. Beric says Jon must look more like his mother. No, excuse me. Beric says that Jon must look like his mother. Beric said that Ned sent him out to fight the mountain when he was Hand of the King. Beric knows Melisandre brought him back and confides in Jon that he was brought back 6 separate times. He died 6 times and was brought back 6 times. Beric believes that they serve the same God, but Jon says he only serves the North. Beric says that the Lord of Light wants him alive, but Jon doesn't know what the Lord of Light wants and wonders why he's here and what's the point of all of this. Beric says that we are all soldiers fighting for life. Beric says that death is the enemy, and the enemy always wins, but we have to keep fighting anyway. Beric tells him something that reminds him of his vows, his Night's Watch vows. Just then the Hound sees the mountain that he saw in the fire and says that we are all getting close. Now, before I move on to the next section, I want to talk about what Jon just said and what Beric said. Beric said that we have to keep on fighting, that we're guarding the realm and we're guarding innocent people. And it's just like the vows from the Night's Watch. It just feels like to me that Jon really doesn't want to be a king, that he was happier and better off being a part of the Night's Watch. Which is strange to me that the writers elected to make him king of the North because he really has no desire to be king of the North. It just makes me feel like they should have voted Sansa in instead of Jon. Because Jon's enthusiasm about being king is completely on the wane. Now, the next 2 people we go to is Dany and Tyrion. Dany and Tyrion are at Dragonstone drinking by the hearth. She says that heroes do stupid things and they die, and she is glad that Tyrion himself is not a hero. She says that Drogo, Jorah, Arya, and now this Jon Snow are all trying to outdo each other. Tyrion says that all the men that she just named have fallen in love with her. Dany doesn't think that Jon loves her, but Tyrion says he can see it in the way he looks at her. She says Jon is too little for her, which is something that I really didn't understand. I didn't understand what she meant by that. Too little how? I mean, he's a tall man, taller than her. I mean, too little how? I really didn't understand what she meant by that. Dany thinks that Tyrion is brave, and that's why she chose him as Hand of the Queen. Then the conversation turns to Cersei. Tyrion says that this may be a trap, and that he may, set up the arrangements with Jaime, to make sure that everyone will come out of this safely. Tyrion, pretty much just wants her to keep her cool throughout this, throughout the discussions and the negotiations. Tyrion also wants her to inspire something more than fear. Tyrion says fear makes your power brittle because everyone underneath you wants to see you dead. Tyrion says if fear is all you have to get people to rally with you and to follow you and to be behind you, then how are you any better than any of the tyrants who came before you? Tyrion wants her to keep her temper and not be impulsive. Tyrion says that we are going to a vital and sensitive negotiation, and Cersei may say things to upset her, and that she needs to, play it cool with herself. Tyrion asks him, when have I ever been impulsive? And then Tyrion says, when you burn the Tarleys alive. Dany replies that it was not impulsive, it was necessary. Tyrion said that you could have killed the father and not the son, or you could have put them both in a cell. She starts to get angry, hearing things that she obviously doesn't want to hear. She starts to get angry and accuses him of taking other people's side. And then Tyrion says, you need to understand other people's point of view when you're a ruler. Tyrion says, if you can't understand that, if you can't understand that, then you'll know what you need to know to beat them. Tyrion says that he believes in her and in the world that she wants to build, but it can't happen all at once. Dany realizes, he's starting to talk about what will happen after she is dead. And that's a subject that Dany, doesn't want to hear. Doesn't want to hear and doesn't want to talk about. Tyrion says that she can't have an heir herself, but she can choose her own successor. Dany doesn't really want to talk about this until after she wears the crown. But Tyrion keeps on. Tyrion says that he saw her fight on the Blackwater Rush and she was almost killed. Tyrion wants her to play the long game instead of the short game, which is true, which is right. Cersei is a short-term player, but Cersei, finds herself in a whole bunch of trouble all the time. Tyrion wants her to play the long game, but Dany says if you had thought about the short game, maybe we wouldn't have lost Dorne and Highgarden. She tells him again that they will discuss what will happen after the succession, after she wears the crown, and she walks off. And I really think this is really telling of Dany. She she's the kind of person that only wants to hear what she wants to hear and see what she wants to see, just like Cersei. And I think that that's a very unwise and uncaring quality in a ruler. You need to see all points of view when you're ruling. If you're a judge, or if you're a politician, or if you're the president, or if you're a queen, or a prince, or a monarch, you need to see other people and see other people's point of view besides your own. That's a great quality in a leader. And Jon has that quality. Jon has that quality to understand other points of view, something that Dany and Cersei does not. Now, we're back with Jon and company, and they're moving through the north. The weather in the north has turned bad, and it is snowing very heavily. One of the wildling is walking, ahead of them in the line when Torment and the Hound notice a bear in the distance. Apparently, the bear sees them and it growls and runs towards them. The bear is dead and has blue eyes. It's a zombie bear. The man in front gets attacked and killed. The bear is huge and swats some of the men aside. Like, and then Thoros and Beric swords, fiery swords lights up and they try to take on the bear. The Thoros and Beric set the bear on fire, but it is still on the attack. It runs towards the Hound and he is afraid because of the fire. And Torment hits it with his axe, but it's still moving. It's on fire, it's being hit, it's being attacked, and it's still moving. It leaps on Thoros and it bites him. It savages him. Eventually, eventually Jorah stabs the bear with the dragon glass daggers that he has, and it kills it. Thoros is down, but he is still alive. Jorah wants to get him back to Eastwatch, but Thoros declines. He asks for his flask of wine or rum or whatever he was drinking. He drinks it, and then Beric burns his wounds with his flaming sword. Beric asks if Thoros is all right, but Thoros just answers, I just got bit by a dead bear. I just got mauled and bit by a dead bear. They help Thoros up, and they start back on their journey. So, I mean, we're moving, into the White Walker territory, obviously. So it's really going to get hairy later on. Now, the next two people we see is Sansa and Peter Baelish. Apparently, she's starting to speak with him again. But you notice she only speaks with him only when she feels she has to. She doesn't confide in him or trust in him until she has to, until she is in trouble. Now, back in Winterfell, Sansa asks where she got the letter, and Baelish lies to her, saying that he doesn't know. But the truth is, he pretty much led Arya to that letter. Last week, Arya was spying on him, and he knew it. And he led Arya to, the letter so Arya could find it. In the hopes, and I think he did this in the hopes that Sansa would speak to him again. Sansa was giving him the cold shoulder, and now apparently she's, back talking to him and listening to him again. Sansa says she's asking the Northerners to fight in the worst winter any of us has ever seen. The weather will be the least of their problems. She is afraid that they will go home if they found out about the letter. She says that their loyalty is to Jon, but Baelish says that you are the Lady of Winterfell and most prefer you to Jon. Sansa thinks that they are all nothing but wind vanes who go back who will back Jon and then will not back Jon, which is actually true. Which is true. Their loyalty is they want Jon to be king, then they don't, then they do again, and Sansa's right about that. Sansa says if they find out about that letter and that she wrote it, they will use it as an excuse to leave, and Jon will have no army left. Baelish says she is your sister and she would never betray you. But Sansa counters saying that she would if she thought that Sansa was going to betray Jon. Sansa says that she really doesn't know Arya anymore. And, Arya has very much changed. Arya is crazy. And she's a loose cannon and she's out of her mind. Baelish suggests that since Brienne is her protector, she could protect, Sansa and intervene if something should happen between the two girls. Now, we go right back into Jon and company, who are moving through the north. Thoros is in the back of the line and he's being helped along by Jorah. He's taking a wound and he's moving slower than he once was. Apparently, Thoros had found a fan in Jorah. Jorah apparently admires him for charging in drunk during the breach on Pike. Thoros barely remembers that, and some of his friends told him about it the next morning when he woke up. Jorah thought that was the bravest thing that he had ever seen, and the bravest man that he had ever known. And Thoros said that, no, I was just the drunkest. Just then, Tormund spots a small clutch of the White Walkers on the move. Apparently, they set fire to they set a fire to draw in the White Walkers. Jon and company attack and they fight. Jorah gets choked by one of the White Walkers, and then Jon kills, the leader, one of the whites, and as soon as the white dies, nearly all of the dead that follow him die as well. One of the walkers is left, and he is completely surrounded. Tormund, cold cocks him in the face, and then he falls on the ground, and then the hound falls on top of it, pinning it and covering its mouth. The White Walker bites the hound's hands, but they manage to bind it up with rope and capture it. Before the White Walker's mouth is covered, it lets out this high-pitched squeal. It is loud and it's awful in the ears, and it echoes. It's very, very loud. As they bind the White Walker, Jon sees a snowstorm on the horizon. The White Walkers, all of the other walkers must have heard the squeal, and now they are on the move, coming in that direction. Jon then orders Gendry to run back to Eastwatch and send a raven to Daenerys. Gendry doesn't want to leave, but Jon says that he's the fastest. Before he goes, Tormund takes the hammer from him, saying that you'll move faster without it, and Gendry runs back to Eastwatch. Jon and company take the White Walker that they have captured and run. They come upon an ice lake that is not completely frozen, and the ice cracks beneath their feet. Jorah orders everyone to stop, but the White Walkers are getting closer. Jon then orders them to run to the rock in the center of the lake, and they all, run for that rock. One of the night's watchmen slips and falls and is eventually overwhelmed and killed by the White Walkers. Jon and company then make it to the rock. The White Walkers, run out onto the lake after them in force. But apparently the ice breaks up underneath them, and some of the whites fall into the lake. And then once, enough of the ice breaks, the White Walkers eventually stop following them. In the meantime, Gendry is running back to the wall. Now, nighttime hits. It's starting to get dark outside. And all of the walkers are waiting at the edge of the lake, surrounded in a circle, waiting, for the ice to freeze. They don't move, they don't speak, they're just standing there waiting. And Jon and company are stranded on a rock in the middle of the lake. So that's pretty much how the situation is out there. And pretty much the White Walkers are just waiting for the lake to freeze over so they can come in and take over. Now, Gendry, falls down exhausted in the snow, but apparently he has made it. The horn sounds, and the door to the tunnel rises up, and Davos and a few other members of the Night's Watch and the Wildlings come out to meet him. Davos asks, "What happened? Where are the others?" Gendry says, "We have to send a raven. We have to send a raven to Daenerys." Davos screams to get the maester. Now, apparently, Jon and company have been out there all night because in the morning they all wake up. The Hound kicks the White Walker, and apparently Thoros has died from the cold and from his wounds. The Hound says that there are worse ways to go. Beric then prays over him, and the Hound takes his wineskin. Then Jon takes the wineskin from the Hound and pours the wine or the rum or whatever he was drinking over his body and says that we're going to have to burn him or he'll rise up. Beric lights up his sword and then they burn Thoros' body. The Hound looks away. Jon then talks to Jorah, and Jorah says that we are all going to freeze soon, or the lake will freeze. Jorah says that when you kill the White Walker, they talk about the previous skirmish that they had with the White Walkers. And Jorah says that when you kill the White Walker, the others almost all of them fell. And then Jorah, because of that interaction and that revelation, Jorah thinks that it may be best just to go for the Night's King and his crew himself, and maybe all of the rest of them will fall. But Jon says we can't do anything like that right now. We have to get that thing back, south of the wall. We have to show everyone that the White Walkers exist. Beric feels that maybe the Lord of Light brought him back to take on the Night's King. But the Hound says, "Be careful, you lost your priest. This is the only life you'll have." The Lord, he says that all of the lords he's met have been nothing but cunts. So why should this Lord of Light be any different? And they all stare at the Night King, who is staring back. I really feel that despite everything that happened, it was good for them to get out there. It was good for them to get out there to, get a good look at the White Walkers and see what they are all about. So this excursion, even though it costed, it costed everyone, it was a good thing to do. The next group of people we go to is Sansa, Maester Walken, and Brienne. At Winterfell, Maester Walken gives her a scroll. Apparently, it is an invitation to King's Landing. Brienne says that they have it's an invitation to King's Landing. Later on, Brienne says to Sansa that they invited you, not me. But Sansa, remembers her time in King's Landing and doesn't want, to go and be a part of that. She wants Brienne to go in her stead. She says that she won't be her prisoner and she won't go back to King's Landing as long as Cersei is the queen. Brienne says that it's not safe leaving her with Littlefinger. She says, Sansa says that she has guards who will imprison him or behead him if he steps out of line. Brienne asks, "Do you trust their loyalty? Do you trust that he hasn't been speaking to them behind her back?" But, Brienne offers to leave Podrick. She offers to leave Podrick behind to protect her, but Sansa, stupidly disagrees. She says that she's safe here. She's the Lady of Winterfell. I'm home and I'm safe, and I don't want anyone protecting me. But I remember way back in one of the previous seasons, as I was looking at that scene with Brienne and Sansa, I remembered way back when way back when with what the Hound said. The Hound says that there is no safety, which is true. Arya is very upset. She's obviously not in her right mind, and Sansa has sent away her protection, which I think is very, very stupid on Sansa's part. The next group of people we go to is Dany, Tyrion, and the dragons. Now, in the morning, Tyrion and Dany walk and talk together as the dragons wake up. Apparently, the message has been received by Dany from Jon, and she's on her way to save Jon and company. Tyrion disagrees, saying that if you die, we're all lost. Dany decides, to say, I'm sorry, but I have to go. I have to do this. You told me not to do anything before, but I'm not going to listen to you on this. I'm going to leave and do what I can in the north. Now, before I go on, back to Jon and company, I want to talk about Tyrion if I can. I think Tyrion is really only using Dany to get rid of Cersei. He hates Cersei. He despises that woman and wants to see her dead. And I think that, at least in part, he's using Dany to fulfill that. I mean, he doesn't want her to be involved in anything in the North, but he just wants her to come on and take over King's Landing. I just think he's using Dany. That's what I think. I mean, I could be wrong. He could be doing it all for her, but I think he's mainly doing it for himself. Now, we go back to Jon and company in the north. Jon and company are still stranded on the rock in the north, surrounded by the White Walkers. Bored, the Hound takes up throwing rocks at the White Walkers, which they do not flinch from at all. Then he throws a bigger, heavier rock at them, but the rock lands on the lake, revealing to the White Walkers that the lake is frozen and able to be stood upon. Then a few of the White Walkers at a time walk out onto the lake, and the fight is on. They are battling with all of their might, but the White Walkers are, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. And Jon sees that this is too much, and he orders everyone to fall back. But fall back to where? What are they supposed to fall back upon? Because they're surrounded on all sides. Tormund, Tormund gets overwhelmed by the White Walkers, and they are on him. Some of the White Walkers that fell through the ice grab a hold of him as well and drag him underneath the water. But the Hound saves him at the last second. Jon is trying to move the captured white. Yeah, he's trying to move the captured White Walker, but he can't really get a hold of him because he has to defend himself against White Walkers who are coming across the lake. And everything, as they are all fighting, everything just seems lost. Everything just seems lost and hopeless, and they are pretty much at the end. The White Walkers are still coming. They're still coming. They're still coming, and they just can't hold them off forever. Then Daenerys and her dragons fly in. The dragons burn up everything. They save the day. Dany saves the day. She burns up everything. The dragons are burning. They're spitting fire, and everyone is shocked by what they see, including Dany, because I think there was part of her that didn't really believe what was going on here, but she's now seen it with her own eyes. She's seen it all. Drogon lands while the other two dragons are in the air, spitting fire. Drogon lands, and then she reaches out her hand to Jon and the others to come on and get on back of the dragon. Jon doesn't. he continues fighting on the ground, fighting to keep back the White Walkers. Now Tormund, Jorah, Beric the Hound, and the captured White Walker, all get up on Drogon's back. As this is going on, the Night's King takes hold of a frozen ice spear and walks through the dragon fire and throws it right at Viserion. The dragon is hit and it's spitting fire out of its wound, and it's also bleeding profusely. Viserion falls out of the sky and into the lake and drowns and dies. Everyone is stunned silent by this, and Dany is completely heartbroken. She's shocked. She can't believe that this has happened. She said earlier in the season that what could anyone do to the dragons? Well, I guess she found the answer to her question. There is something out there that could kill the dragon in one blow. Jon is angry, and he's angry at seeing one of the dragons die, and he's pissed off, and he's glaring at the Night King. Then the Night King grabs up another ice spear, and Jon sees this, and he screams to Dany to go, just get out of here, just go. She tries to wait for him, but Jon is tackled and falls into the lake. Dany sees the spear in the Night King's hand and commands Drogon to fly. The White Walkers leave and she flies away. She flies away from there. Now, as she tries to fly away, the Night King throws up another spear. But Drogon ducks away from it, almost throwing Jorah off of the dragon's back. But he manages to keep his seat, and they all fly away. The White Walkers leave just as Jon comes out of the water. He is badly wounded, he's half frozen, he's exhausted, but he musters the strength to get on his feet. The White Walkers see him still alive. They see him still alive, and then they run towards him in a group. Jon, who is weakened, who can barely lift his sword, he manages to find the strength within himself to pick up his sword and stand his ground. Just then, Benjen Stark, Uncle Benjen, rides up out of nowhere, swinging, his big ball of fire, killing some of the White Walkers. He comes over to Jon, and he shows his face to him, and Jon sees that it is true, that it is his Uncle Benjen who was lost beyond the wall. Uncle Benjen puts Jon on the back of his horse and tells him to go. Jon says that he wants Benjen to come with him, but Benjen said it's just no time. Benjen hits the rump of the horse, and Jon rides off. Benjen is left alone with the White Walkers, and you can see his great ball of fire spinning through the air, but it is eventually not seen anymore, and he is killed. He's soon very much killed. And Jon sees it, and he is heartbroken at the sight of it. But Jon does manage to get away from that scene. Back at Eastwatch by the sea, the Hound, Beric, and Tormund put the captured White Walker into the rowboat. Beric says that we will meet again, and the Hound responds, I fucking hope not. I can't really blame him for that. I can't blame him. On top of the wall, Jorah and Dany are there. And Dany is holding out hope. She's standing up there, she's waiting patiently, she's holding out hope that Jon is somehow still alive. Jorah tells her that we have to go. We can't stay here any longer, but she just wants to wait one more moment. She goes to leave, but then she hears the Night's Watch horn sounding, which lets everyone know that a rider is approaching, and it is Jon. Jon has made it back alive. Made it back to Castle Black. Not Castle, but Eastwatch by the Sea. Excuse me. John is taken, into the cabin of the boat, and they undress him. And Danny sees that, once he's shirtless, that he has wounds, those stab wounds that he took for the Night's Watch. When the Night's Watch killed him, and she is shocked by what she sees. She asked him a question. What did Davos mean by you taking a knife in your heart for your people? But John, played it off and covered it up. But now she can see that he did truly, literally, and physically take knives for his people. Arya and Sansa. Arya was really, really creepy in this scene. Apparently, Littlefinger was right. She's angry. She's angry with Sansa, and she threatened her in this episode. She threatened her life. She threatened her, and I just have to say again that Littlefinger was right about Arya, and he was right to tell Sansa to keep your protector beside you. But I mean, Sansa, I think that Sansa pretends to listen to Littlefinger and then does the opposite of what he tells her just to try to prove him wrong. But he was right in this. You need to keep your protector next to you. Now, Sansa goes into Arya's room looking for that letter that she wrote in season 1. While looking for it, Sansa finds Arya's faces, one of them belonging to Walder Frey. Sansa is then startled to see Arya hovering over her. Sansa says that she has hundreds of guards all loyal to me. Arya says they're not here now. Arya tries to play the game of faces with Sansa, but Sansa is not interested in that. Sansa asks, "What are the faces? What are these faces, and where did they come from?" Arya says that she got them from Bravos, and she also says that both her and Sansa wanted to be other people. Arya wanted to be a soldier, and Sansa wanted to be a queen. She says that with the faces, I can be anyone that I want to be. I can be someone else if I wanted. Even you. She says that she's always wanted to know what it was like to be Sansa, to wear those pretty dresses and be the Lady of Winterfell. Then she picks up a knife and walks towards Sansa slowly and threatens her. And she says that all that I would need to know will to know how to be you, and all I would need to do to make that happen was to take your face. Threatening to peel her face off. Arya's completely threatening her in this moment. She walks towards Sansa all creepy and crazy, and then she hands the Valyrian steel blade over to Sansa and then leaves. That was a threat. That was a stone cold threat, and I don't care who they were. If it was me, she wouldn't be there. She would have to leave after that. I don't care if they were family or not. You don't walk towards me with a knife in your hand and expect to just walk away without no consequence. I don't know how Sansa put up with that, but I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to put up with that at all. There would have to be consequences for threatening me. We move on to Jon and Dany on the boat. Jon wakes up in the cabin on the boat sailing to King's Landing. And he wakes up and sees Dany sitting there. She's crying and she's heartbroken over the death of her dragon. He apologizes to her and says, "I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that we lost your dragon." And he says that he wishes that he could take it back if he could. And he wishes that he would have never gone and take it back if he could. He then takes her hand, and Dany says maybe this needed to happen, because if we had never gone, I never would have known. I never would have known, and I never would have believed it, which is true. She says that you have to see it with your own eyes to know it. She says that the dragons are my children and the only children that I'll ever have. Dany promises Jon that she will help destroy the Night King. She's with him now. She sees the threat and she is with him totally and 100%. And she promises to destroy the Night King together. Jon says, "Thank you, Dany." He calls her Dany, which which she hasn't really been called in a very long time. She can't remember the last person or the last time somebody called her Dany. Jon says that if I can't call you Dany, what about my queen? She realizes that Jon has bent the knee. He bent the knee. He should never have done that. I cannot believe that he did that. I can't believe it. Dany says, what about the people who follow him? And then he says that they'll come to know you as I do. Dany hopes that she'll one day be worthy of him, and he says, you are worthy. She tries to let go of his hand and leave, but he holds her hand a little bit tighter. And then she tells him that it's best that you get some rest. There's the attraction there. You can see, Jon finally responding to Dany. I mean, he's responded in a huge way. He is completely handed over the North. And this is the section that I was talking about in the beginning that shocked me. I cannot believe that he handed over the North. He has ruined himself in the North by doing this. Those old Northern lords will not go for this. Sansa will not go for this. I don't think Arya and Bran will go for it either. He's made a huge mistake, in my opinion, of doing this. And I'm really outraged and I'm really disappointed in Jon for bending the knee. He should never have given over the North without at least consulting the other Northern lords, without consulting his sisters and his brother. He never should have done that, in my opinion, for any reason. He never should have given up Sansa's and Arya's and Bran's rightful inheritance without at least talking to them first. He was wrong to do that, in my opinion. Now, the last scene of the night belongs to the White Walkers and Viserion. The White Walkers use chains to pull Viserion out of the lake. Now, before I move on, where did they get those chains from? Where did they get chains from? Where did the White Walkers get heavy chains from? Do they have chains have to be forged? Where did they get chains from? Where did they get metal from? Where did they get blacksmiths from? But yeah, they pull Viserion out of the lake with heavy chains. Then the Night King walks over to the dead dragon and lays his hand on it. And after a few seconds, Viserion wakes up with his eyes blue. And that's where the story ends. Thank you so much for watching my review. I know it ran a little long. It's almost an hour. But, this was a heavy with content episode, and I apologize that it's run so long. Come back next week for the next episode. My MVP tonight is Tyrion and Gendry. I named Tyrion my MVP because he, is trying to advise Dany wisely about seeing other points of view besides her own. And I've also named Gendry my MVP because he made it back to the wall. I didn't think he would make it back, but he did. So for those actions, I have named Tyrion and Gendry my MVP. Thank you so much for watching my review. If you like my review, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will be back next week for the season finale. Enjoy your life as I do, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so very much.